Good morning. Welcome to the Thursday edition of your favorite program on leadership television inside Nigeria. It's raining cats and dogs in Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. I don't know much about other states, but it started early this morning. My name is Winifred Dubebo, your host on the program. Of course, on today's show, we are looking at what the newspapers are saying, starting with Nigeria's most influential leadership newspaper. Leadership's leading story today says billionaire Samad Rabiu forecasts 1,400 naira per dollar exchange rate by year end, and that story is on page 4 of Leadership. Billionaire Samad Rabiu forecasts 1,400 naira to exchange to a dollar exchange rate by year end. Of course, we want to take some excerpts from that leading story. President of Boa Group, Abdul Samad Rabiu, has expressed optimism that the naira will strengthen further, projecting an exchange rate of between 1,300 and 1,400 naira to the dollar before the end of the year. Rabiu made the projection on Wednesday after a meeting with President Bola Tinubu at the presidential villa, Abuja. He commended the administration's economic reforms, describing them as bold and decisive steps that were already yielding positive results. I expect that the exchange rate is going to strengthen even further. I expect that the rate should come down to maybe 1,300, 1,400 naira before the end of the year. And this is something that we should all celebrate, Rabiu said. He noted that businesses no longer depended on the Central Bank of Nigeria for foreign exchange, as many were now able to source forex, that is foreign exchange, independently, including through credit cards and international banking channels. According to him, this marks a major shift from past reliance on official allocations. We have the picture of the president of Boa Group, Abdul Samad Rabiu, on that story. Moving ahead, again on the cover of Leadership, we have other stories gracing the cover. And underneath that, we have how 12 guards stole 4.8 billion naira materials from Kainji power plant coming from police. Any wonder that we are having epileptic power supply in the country, especially in the north central zone of the country? How 12 guys stole 4.8 billion naira materials from Kainji power plant police, and that story continues on page 16 of Leadership. Alleged age falsification, police to arraign retired AIGCPs today. Sule Lamido says, despite our friendship, I'll work against Tinubu in 2027. Of course, he is in the main opposition party, PDP, while the president, Bola Tinubu, is in the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC party. Embattled Rivers Administrator Ibas visits president. Of course, we've not heard the end of the threatenings but from the lawmakers, Rivers State lawmakers, who insist that they are going to probe Ibas' month tenure. And the embattled administrator Ibas has visited President Bola Tinubu yesterday at the villa. The story continues on page 21 of Leadership. Of course, you want to find out what the development is all about. Investigation Bureau blames Abuja Kaduna train derailment on poor maintenance. That story continues on page 28 of Leadership. 31 years after tragedy, Tinubu honors Ogonifor with CON, and that is the story that is trending on some of the papers we have on our lineup today. And not only that, President Tinubu has given the directive to resume oil exploration in Ogoni land. Don't release funds to former APC Council Chairman Oshun wants Edun. Edun is the is the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy. Don't release funds to former APC Council Chairman Oshun wants Edun. We move towards the masthead of Leadership. With subsidy windfall, states have no excuses for lack of development, coming from the FCT Minister, Ms. Wike, and the story continues on page 24 of the paper. On the business boss, PENCOM plans fresh reforms to safeguard pension savings. PENCOM plans fresh reforms to safeguard pension savings. Business story on the business boss on the cover of Leadership this Thursday. Oscar Ibro's death, a great loss to Yoruba nation, Nigeria. Oborewori, the governor of Delta State, Oscar Ibro, died at the age of 67. May so rest in peace. And lastly, on the cover of Leadership, government issues flood alerts to 15 states. Flood submerges 5 Kogi communities. Maybe obviously one of the flood alerts have already started with the rains in Abuja this morning. Government issues flood alert to 15 states. And that concludes the review. We move towards the page 3 of Leadership to our stand. Today's stand is on sermon regulation, not a solution. Governor Mabago of Niger State recently announced a controversial proposal. Clerics in the state would now be required to submit their sermons to the Ministry of Religious Affairs for approval before delivering them to their congregations. According to the governor, the move is meant to prevent the misuse of religious platforms for inciting unrest or attacking government policies. He cited the example of Saudi Arabia, where similar regulations are in place as justifications. While concerns about the potential abuse of the pulpit are valid and not to be dismissed lightly, this proposed regulation raises significant constitutional and democratic questions. Nigeria, like Saudi Arabia, is a pluralistic democracy, not a religious monarchy, and such a policy risks infringing on the fundamental rights that are protected under the Constitution. To begin with, the comparison to Saudi Arabia is flawed and inapplicable. Saudi Arabia is an absolute monarchy where Islam is the official state religion. Its constitution is based on the Quran and the Hadith, and the government operates under strict interpretations of Sharia law. In contrast, Nigeria is a secular state. Section 10 of the 1999 Constitution prohibits the adoption of any religion as a state religion. Our governance structure is built upon the democratic principles of free speech, freedom of religion, and the rule of law, not religious orthodoxy. We take a stand on the stand. Attempting to control sermons is a legal misstep and a distraction from the pressing governance challenges that need urgent attention: education, healthcare, infrastructure, and security. If the governor is genuinely concerned about harmful rhetoric, a more constructive approach would be to engage religious leaders in dialogue, promote interfaith education, and support community programs that foster tolerance and civic responsibility. In a democracy, criticism is not something to be feared. It is a necessary ingredient for growth. Government officials should welcome constructive criticism as a form of feedback that helps them do better. Efforts to suppress it, however well-intentioned, often result in greater public distrust and unintended consequences. Governor Bago's administration will do well to reconsider this policy. The pulpit is not the enemy of democracy. It is one of its most powerful allies when used responsibly. Today's excerpts from today's stand in Leadership: sermon regulation, not a solution. This is in response to the declarations by the Niger State governor for religious leaders to submit their sermon for approval before delivering them on the pulpit. Beyond that, we go to the back page of the Leadership newspaper, where we have Being Blunt with Muazu Elize, the group managing director of Leadership newspaper. Today is writing on Film 3 Beyond Adamawa. In just a few years, the transformation has been striking, writing on the governor of Adamawa State, Film 3. We move to Ghana Must Go. Ghana Must Go's on the news. Retired AIG says state police recipe for disaster. And Ghana Must Go replied, Nigerian police force recipe for roadblock. So funny. It's on that humor note we conclude review of Leadership newspaper this Thursday. For more, log into www.leadership.ng. From Leadership, we move over to the next paper on our lineup this Thursday, and we are moving to Nigerian Tribune. Like I mentioned earlier, the President Bola Tinubu, while giving the Ogoni 4 posthumous award CON yesterday at the Villa, also restated the federal government's move to start exploration in Ogoni land. That is the cover story on Nigerian Tribune this Thursday. It says federal government moves to restart oil exploration in Ogoniland. Terrible directs Ribadu on Niger Delta peace development. Confers national honors on murdered Ogoni for 31 years after. Leading story on Nigerian Tribune this Thursday. It's also some of the leading story. It's also the leading story on some of the papers we have on our lineup. To restart oil exploration in Ogoniland. Terrible directs Ribadu on Niger Delta peace development. Confers national honors on murdered Ogoni for 31 years after. That is also part of the leading stories on the cover of Leadership we read earlier. Hunger, reform or risk irrelevance, Tinubu tells UN world leaders. Gives reasons why demand for seat in UN's Permanent Security Council timely. Position Nigeria's mineral wealth, economic reforms as blueprint for Africa. 2 kids, 6 abducted in Kwara bandit attacks. Nigerian industrialist Olorogun Oscar Ibru dies at 67. 24 hours to coronation. Prominent Nigerians converge on Ibadan at lecture in honor of 44th Olubadan. Emergence of Ladoja will modernize Ibadan. Falola. Separate tradition for politics. Obansanjo advises new Oba. Upgraded Ibadan Airport welcomes first flight as Tinubu's advance team arrives. That story continues on page 3 of Nigerian Tribune. We move masthead of Nigerian Tribune this Thursday. Osun government tells finance minister not to release local government funds to APC members' account. And that concludes review of front headline stories on Nigerian Tribune this Thursday. For more, site of Nigerian Tribune. Head to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is the Daily Times. Still on the oil exploration in Ogoniland is what the Daily Times is leading with this Thursday. Ogoniland, Tinubu directs Ribadu, NNPCL stakeholders to explore a return of. We have the picture of the meeting that took place yesterday with President Bola Ahmed, the NSA, Ribadu, Governor of Delta State, Similaye Fubara, and Gonida Committee, Professor Don Baridam, during the presentation of the report at the Presidential Villa, Abuja, yesterday. Speaker inaugurates ad hoc committee to investigate Naira for crude oil policy. That story is on page 5 of the Daily. Make drug test mandatory for driver's license applicants, NDLEA. Of course, we are seeing stories on mental health issues as World Mental Health Day draws near in October. WACT MPA seal $60 million pact to drive Nigeria's first grain port. WACT MPA seal $60 million pact to drive Nigeria's first grain port. NLNG 2025 entries for science prize are poor quality, coming from advisory board. Naiti demands urgent reforms to unlock Nigeria's 400 billion naira mining sector. That story continues on page 12 of the Daily Times. And lastly, on the cover of the Daily Times, above the masthead, poor rail maintenance training caused Abuja Kaduna rain train derail, NSIB. Poor rail maintenance training caused Abuja Kaduna train derail, NSIB. The story runs on page 9 as we conclude the review of front headline stories on the Daily Times this Thursday. Don't forget to log into the website of the Daily Times at www.dailytimesng.com for continuation of these headline stories. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is The Punch. The Punch is still talking oil exploration. It says NNPCL secures 318 billion naira to fund new oil exploration. FARC subcommittee pro spending for frontier exploration. Budget office warns Nigeria losing 60% of oil income. National oil firm pays zero dividend to federation accounts despite 1.06 trillion naira profits. Experts push private exploration. Kickers to the leading story on today's The Punch newspaper leading story. NNPCL secures 318 billion naira to fund new oil exploration. Hunger, that is United Nations General Assembly. Tinubu aligns with cause for Palestinian state. Infrastructure decay caused Abuja Kaduna train derailment, NSIB. Same leading story in all the papers today. Tinubu receives Ogoni report on non-slave leaders. Osun Rights federal government challenges local government funds disbursement. Motorists stranded as flood overruns Lagos communities. Leadership reported that flood has overtaken 5 local government areas in Kogi. Ibas meets Tinubu EFCC chair in Aso Rock. Beside the masthead, I'll protect Yoruba interest if elected President Atiku. Atop the masthead of the Punch, Olubadan Oyo jazz up for historic coronation. Ladoja celebrates 81st birthday today, remains in seclusion for traditional rites. Ibadan Airport reopens as Tinubu's advanced team. VIPs arrive, hotels fully booked because the Olubadan is going to be inaugurated, that is Ladoja, over the weekend. That concludes the review of front headline stories on the Punch this Thursday. For more, log into the website of the Punch newspaper. We move to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is The Guardian. The Guardian says political parties or SPVs roll over rights, multiple dormant parties as INEC considers 14 more. Political parties or SPVs roll over rights, multiple dormant parties as INEC considers 14 more. And we have illustration beneath that leading story. Number of political parties between 2019 and 2023. In 2023, we have 18. 2019, we had 91. 2015, 27. 2011, 63. 2007, 50. 2003, 28. And in 1999, we had 3. In 2023, of the 83 million registered voters, only 27 million voted. The winner secured 8.7 million votes, just 37% of the voting population. This confirms voter apathy and non-representativeness of the people by micro-political parties. 2023 Senate results, we have for 109 seats. And we have 2023 House of Reps results captured underneath this leading story. In states, we have 36 states and 774 local government areas. And out of these, we have 176,874 polling stations, while we have 99,618,763 registered voters as of September 21, 2025. We have 18 registered political parties as INEC considers 14 more. These are captured in the illustration beneath the leading story on today's The Guardian newspaper. Roll over rights, multiple dormant parties as INEC considers 14 more. Furthermore, on The Guardian, federal government honors Ogoni 4 to resume oil production in communities. NSIB links Abuja-Kaduna train derailment to poor maintenance. Lagos state government deploys survey to manage HIV spread treatment. Hunger at 80, Tinubu urges sweeping UN reforms, permanent seat at UNSC amid global shifts. Federal government renews commitment to ending torture, upholding human rights. Obore Wori Momodu Mon as Oscar Ibru dies at 67. Beneath the masthead of The Guardian, 2027, Atiku court Southwest votes, pledges to unite Nigeria. Tinubu summons Ibas to Aso Villa amid financial probe. Reps raise panel to monitor Tinubu's Naira for crude policy. That story runs on page 3 of The Guardian. And that also concludes the review of front headline stories on The Guardian this Thursday. For more, log into www.guardian.com.ng. From The Guardian, we move to the last paper we have on our lineup, and that is Vanguard. Vanguard is talking heads at its main headline story this Thursday. Healthcare crisis, what government can do to end mass migration of doctors. NMA, NARD, NAD, AMLS, and others say migration of medical personnel putting pressure on healthcare system in Nigeria. Lament exhaustion killing few personnel available. Resident doctors vow to resume strike after September 26 if Hunger, federal government renews call for permanent seats at UN Security Council as South Africa's Ramaphosa seeks end to trade weaponization. Tinubu announced Ogoni 4 moves to restart oil production in Ogoniland. Tinubu meets with S Rivers Administrator Ibas Eidun, EFCC Chair at Aso Rock. And sports, FIFA Under-20 World Cup. Zuberi raises hope of lifting elusive trophy in Chile. Atop the masthead of Vanguard, CBN warns against Naira abuse, hoarding of currency. Expectations of subjects as Obaladoja ascends throne as 44th Olubadan. Dapman bows seeks collaboration with Dangote Refinery. The story continues on page 9 of Vanguard. Dapman bows seeks collaboration with Dangote Refinery. Restructuring key to Nigeria's sustainable development coming from SGF. Oscar Ibro dies at 67. Ubere Wori orders more. And that concludes the review of front headline stories on Vanguard newspaper this Thursday. For more, log into www.vanguardngr.com. And that also concludes today's Inside Nigerian Leadership Television. For more, log into www.leadership.ng and all our social media handles. My name is Winifred Webo. I look forward to having you same time, same station for another fresh edition of the program tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.